Spring is here. Have you shagged a flower yet? Because everyone out there is doing it. I tell you what, it's a abundance of life energy out in the sun, out in the warm morning air. So it's, you know, I've even had a hard time going out and filming videos myself because it's just been too nice a days to not get out digging holes, planting trees, all the other fun stuff that I basically moved out here to do, as well as shoot excellent knife content, by the way. Like and subscribe. So springtime lets me do a lot of sort of jobs, I guess. It's usually still just stuff that, you know, opening things and putting things in things, and you know, but it's new versions of that, so it's always exciting. And I even remembered to bring my camera around for my little project with this knife, where I subbed out my normal workhorse, the Spyderco Stretch 2, for this very much workhorse as well, the MILF, the MILF 1 folder from Hardcore Hardware Australia. So yes, it did itself some springtime jobs. Well, look at that pair of MILFs, huh? One serrated, one plain edge. How did you wrangle that, Pete? Well, I took a gander at some knives that they sent me to my DMs. They were just like, probably just send all to like 50 losers like me with YouTube channels. And you know, I don't usually do the stuff, but I'm making a lot of videos lately, and I don't have much, and I can't just buy everything. I you know, if I wanted to keep making content, I'd have to keep buying knives, and it's kind of like a zero. You get some ad revenue and whatever, but it doesn't cover you just buying stuff for review all the time. So you know what? Every now and then, I will say, okay, I'll take something. In fact, in this case, because I'm clearly a 16-year-old girl, I just said hot. And then they arranged to send me just a few little things, you know, and I'm always a bit bashful about, you know, getting things for review without paying for them. I feel like I need to over-justify that I'm still going to give an honest review. I got to like, you know, be careful not to bombard you guys with the same company, because I know when I'm watching videos, nothing worse than like, oh, this guy's been on the soft and supple teats of Kaiser. You can tell with his 19 Kaiser knives this month. It's kind of like these companies often send you like a billion things, and you got to kind of think, oh man, how am I going to make videos on all this without becoming like the Olight channel or something, you know? So, you know what? It helps to digest these hang-ups in real time, talking to you guys and saying them out loud. But that's how we got where we are. That being said, I'm still certainly going to call these knives on anything I see, good and bad. And yeah, there is some odd stuff about them that you certainly need to know if it's not immediately apparent by just looking with your eyes. But yeah, I'll underline all the things you need to know about this company. They are an Australian-based company, so their guys are like officers and with like some limited like production-ish or like interactive capacity here. But I think a lot of the actual manufacture is still done in Taiwan, and then like the finishing is done here. So there's still like a hairy Australian knuckle or two on the shoulder of the people cutting these out, saying,
"You just wait till I get here, son. I'll give him a good old spruce up, eh? I'll go over that edge once more. Give it a bit of a what for, eh? How's that sound, Sonny boy, Sonny Jim, eh?"
So there's a bit of that going on, I believe, but yeah, mostly it's kind of like really high-end Taiwanese OEM style work. At least that's how it feels and looks to me, at the very least. You want to talk weirdnesses, huh? How about these things are bloody thick? So you want to do some apple cutting, do you? Cutting is not really the right word. Exploding is the word. for when you take your MILF 01 to your apple, or even, you know, anything that's got a bit of that crispy tension to it, you know. Like I've got it in slow-mo for a reason, because I think it's probably pretty apparent even to the unslowed eye. But goodness me, this is a geometry that, well, you know, I'll say it does cut at the absolute edge for sure. So it's got a nice little hollow behind that initial, you know, bevel, which does do, you know, the cutting is fine for that, you know. When you're using stuff like this though, apples and things that require perhaps a slimmer knife or a flat knife, yeah, it's kind of left wanting just a little bit. You're going to be looking at, you know, pretty chunky, you know, twisted cuts, or, you know, outright shattering or cracking apart of the things you're trying to cut through. So there you go. If you're the kind of chap like me who likes to, you know, and the thing is, it's funny, my kids always ask me, why do you cut up the knives? And obviously, because I want to use my knives is why I cut up the apples, is the kind of reason one. But also, I have a bit of a thing where I don't really, I wouldn't even say it out loud to my kids, because then this would plant the seed in them as well. Look at that. But I swear once when I was a kid, I bit into an apple that just looked really good, but it was all just like brown and funky inside. I can still remember like a cidery taste. And ever since then, I basically didn't eat apples for ages until I started cutting them up for myself and preparing them. So it's just like a bit of a not OCD-ish thing, although I do have a few of those traits. I won't eat a fruit salad that has been cut up for me. I can't tell you why. I don't know. I won't go to a shop and buy like pre-cut up fruit. I have no commentary on why that is. It just makes my skin crawl. Like why? Yeah, hey, I don't know either. I don't know. It's just how I am. So yeah, this is like a precursor to that probably slightly weirder aspect of myself, that I do actually like to cut up my apples and my pears, kind of because I want to see what's inside them. And if you cut them up with your MILF 01, you'll see absolutely what's inside them, but you'll be left with a less tactile, sensational experience when you sort of want to go for that nice thin slice. You can end up with some chunks, boy. Here it is next to some other blades. Of course, at the top we've got the Buck 110, and then my Spyderco Stretch 2. Then there's the MILF, then a Honey Badger, a knife that lots of people seem to have, and then a Paramilitary 2. And that's it with the spines showing. You see, it's quite a thick knife. Generally about as thick as a pretty normal or even a pretty robust fixed blade there. So you got a fair bit of stock thickness to, I don't know, pry with. Who knows? You know who this knife is for? This knife is for people who wish that zero tolerance was still a thing. Like, you know, zero tolerance from 2012. I'm sure the brand is still going, but remember when they used to just make knives that were like this, like these big beefy things with these clunky chonko frame locks that'd go clunk when you opened them, come in like giant boxes and just kind of feel really highly tweaked and special. That's who these are for. These are like a harkening back to that era of knives, really. You know, if you're sick of like some guy with a triple hyphenated surname selling you a ultra minimalist little knife that looks like a suppository with like an ad copy on a website that looks like this, with all these words about like tradition and grandfathers and stuff, while selling you something made out of Vanax and you know, carbo quartz or something. It's for people who are kind of a bit sick of that and want to maybe go back to the time when knives were a little bit more doofy and chongular.
See, that is really good cutting in this sense. Like that's, a lot of knives don't do that as easily. This Honey Badger, very sharp still. Actually, that does it right too. Bad example, right? But a lot of the blades that I come here and do that with, this exact job, even the PM2. Okay, bad example. Oh my God, I swear I've had like 2 or 3 knives that just can't do this. Okay, so stretch. There we go. It may do that slightly better than me stretch, which has a pretty sharp edge at the moment still. But yeah, it just illustrating that it does still very much cut just doesn't cut like those types of things like apples and whatever. Like that's not easy stuff to cut, and it does a really good job with it. You know, the low, you know, the hollow grind starting low has enough of that air gap in it that still does get through most things. It's just not those entirely tensioned things like apples. Alrighty, so the steel on this guy, S30V, classic, you know, everyone knows it, and when you sharpen it well, it slices very well and for a good long time. So I have gone and put a 17-degree edge on either side of this knife. The factory wasn't that much higher than that. It was probably about a 19-degree edge. It took a little bit off one side and was basically the same on the other side. So not a huge amount of difference there. What we're going to do is we're going to cut some twisted sisal rope until it no longer does a nice smooth paper cut, and that'll be the number, and that'll be comparable to other blades that I've done at 17 degrees per side with this sort of similar finished edge, so to 1000 grit and then a strop. It's, you know, fairly polished. It's not like the crazy KME polish. Anyway, just should be a good little interesting data point. D2, for example, the other day on the Honey Badger, cut about 300 times. So we'd be hoping to improve on that just a little bit, perhaps. Let's see. At 425, the knife no longer slices through a held sheet of paper, which is a pretty good result for S30V. You're looking at like your M390s will generally get like 600 to 700, your CPM 20 CV 600 to 700, your S35 VN will be about the same, sometimes even a bit less. Your Spy 27 will be about the same. So, you know, it's just a good basic, you know, entry level super steel. What a silly term that is, but yeah, it's a good steel. Probably not going to be doing anything too unexpected on you. Before I sharpen this, I'd cut this into compost and bags of horse manure and things like that, and cow manure. And I'm not sure if horse and cow manure have differing effects on the edge apex. That's perhaps an experiment for another day. But yeah, generally there wasn't the chipping that you often hear about S30V getting when it's doing that kind of work. It was just like a vaguely dull-ish edge before I resharpened it. It was still a fine working edge. So yeah, overall, last couple of weeks or so, it's been a good performer. Certainly happy to have a knife in this steel. Thumbs up. So do I like the knife? Yeah, I like the knife. It's good. Is it going to replace my Spyderco Stretch as my daily user? Probably not. The Stretch does those fine slicing tasks better. And while my daily user doesn't need to be like, I'm not making, you know, detailed watermelon sculptures or anything like that, I do like to be able to slash an apple a bit easier. Just as a, you know, something I actually do. I'm on quite a health kick. That's my snack. Depressing, I know, but you know, things like apples and pears, and I do use my pocket knife because I can just keep track of it easier. I don't have to go dishwasher back and forward, whatever. Often I'm just in, quick snack and out. So that's basically what keeps me coming back to the Stretch 2. This is going to be a more robust knife than the Stretch 2, absolutely. The frame look is pretty much, you know, at least 60% contact with the back of the blade. It's obviously a thick, robust blade, sort of hefty, robust handles, you know, solid grip on there. And the Stretch is, you know, a mid-lock back can be sort of shunted loose, and you buy, you know, accidentally spine whacking it or whatever, you can, you know, fail a mid-lock back pretty easily. I mean, any lock can fail, but obviously, yeah, just a bit more of a lightweight knife, but I still find it a pretty full capability knife here, the Stretch. So still my fave, but yeah, this is really nice. It's nice for like if you're after something a bit more of that, as I said, old school, overbuilt, zero tolerance-ish flavor, which there are, you know, not too much of anymore in the production blades. Lots of custom makers are still making stuff like this, but in terms of productions, things are streamlining a bit, and so yeah, it's kind of cool that people still make things like this. What was the critiques? Yeah, apart from the thick blade, which isn't really, you know what you can see the specs on the page, you know it's not going to slice apples. Only other thing, the surface texture here and the clip here, either the clip tension or the surface texture, one of those things could be reduced a little bit so it comes out of your pocket a bit easier. You saw me doing my push-pull montage just before, which was a silly little thing, but I was trying to make a point. It does kind of grab the pants a little bit as you pull it out, but again, some people like that. Some people like cold steels with their super rough G10, the Recon. Remember the Recon, absolute pants shredder. This isn't as bad as that because it's a high detailed pattern, but it's not particularly rough. Like you couldn't sand with this like you can with some of the cold steel G10s. So it's not going to ruin your pockets, but it does make for a tougher pull from your pocket. Everything else about it though, fit and finish is like immaculate. Heat treatment obviously got no problems with it at all. That's really well done, S30V. The action's great. The general assembly and everything, no worries at all. It's just going to come down to a matter of taste for you. If this is your bag, if you love those old Ken Onion ZTs, if you like, the Cold Steel Voyager, if you like that but wish it flipped, things like that is what you're going to be after this for. This is more of that type of thing in the knife world. So pretty cool. Everything about it's pretty sort of overbuilt, oversized. The pivot's huge, the blade's thick. The handles are just big and hand-feeling. Nice and neutral though, good for, just bearing down on, good for really gripping. You put your thumb on the back, jimping there, no worries at all. When I was doing my rope cutting, it was pretty comfortable for a pocket knife. Generally speaking, as long as it's got a frame or a liner lock, a lock back as well. I only find the compression locks and sometimes the axis locks, if they stick out a bit far, can be a bit uncomfortable for that repetitive rope cutting task. But again, that's kind of a stupid YouTube thing that I do, so not really a huge issue. Look, overall, it's a thick, chunky blade on a well-made, package. If you're fine with that, if you're fine that it's going to explode your apples rather than slice them, it's going to do everything else really well. Like it was doing all of my day-to-day jobs absolutely fine. And so, yeah, I would be pretty happy to recommend the MILF from Hardcore Hardware Australia as a thumbs up in terms of a well-made blade.